Hello again, everybody. Welcome to episode 2, which is the journey to make this bebe. It's going to be a little bit different than the last episode. It's going to be, I want to say, like I said in the little teaser, emotional, a little vulnerable, definitely not as funny, but infertility, unexplained infertility is technically what we were diagnosed with. Um, Sometimes as a topic that people don't want to talk about, or there's like this weird shame around it, which I don't feel that. But it's tough. It's embarrassing. It's something that you think should come so easy is to get pregnant. Next milestone. Okay, boom, boom, boom. We're on to the next thing. But yeah, so I'm going to go over what Andrew and I went through. I have my iPad beside me because timelines are important for this episode. So I just want to start there, and we'll probably have to edit this episode because I don't think she's going to sleep very long. But okay, so we started trying for a baby July 2023, which is the month leading up to our wedding. So I had been on birth control, like the pill, for many, many years, 15 plus years. So I knew that it was probably going to take a few months for my body to adjust to my normal level of hormones, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it just made sense. Baby after wedding. We weren't too concerned. We were living in Halifax at the time, so we weren't too concerned about where we lived. We had an apartment with enough rooms for a nursery. We were so excited to get started. So yeah, I guess TMI if my dad's listening, and my mom, which probably doesn't care. But a lot of sex, starting to have a lot of sex, tracking my cycle. So I started out with the pre-mom ovulation strips, and I used the app, which was really good because it did help me understand a bit more about how long my cycle was, how consistent it was. I did find that the strips sometimes weren't very accurate, or like it fluctuated. Looking for that LH peak, ladies, you know what I'm talking about. So I did use that for a while. Eventually I changed over to, and I'll have to get the brand, but the ovulation strips, or the sticks with the like smiley face on it, because I found that much more accurate. So started with the ovulation strips, started with the prenatals, the extra supplements like vitamin D, CoQ10 for egg quality, which the reason why I did that is because I read a book called It Starts with the Egg, which is linked in my bio as an audiobook. It's really interesting. So it's not just for infertility or IVF purposes. It's just a better understanding of what you do and how it affects your sperm quality and or egg quality. So it makes a couple recommendations on supplements that can optimize, I guess, your chances to get pregnant. So I was trying to do everything possible. Cut down on alcohol, didn't cut it out, because I found the more I did, the more pressure I kind of put on myself. I'm like, oh my God, I can't even live life and have a glass of wine. So definitely cut down. I tried to be healthier, eat healthier. But yeah, ovulation strips, the apps. I started doing the basal body temperature with like a little thermometer. That's when it became a bit too much, because you'd have to take your temperature before you even stand up and go pee. And I felt so restricted doing that. But again, all of these layers every month. You get your period. Okay, what did we do? What can we do differently next month? I ended up getting an Aura ring, which I love because it helped me, passively take my temperature, which was really great. This tracked my cycle way better than the ovulation strips and the Pre-Mom app. It also monitored my stress levels and really made me prioritize my sleep, which I wasn't really doing. I think I just am so used to, sorry, there's like a little fuzzy, running on such a high frequency of stress, and like not little sleep, but like I I thought I was sleeping okay. I was not. I was not sleeping okay. I was pretty stressed. But yeah, so every month goes by. 2023, we're into 2024. Some personal stuff happened, some outer stress stuff, of course, work stuff. It all kind of compounds into your body. Like I'm taking on all of this, and it's just not working. I cover Atlantic Canada for work, so I'm literally coordinating trips around when I think I'm going to ovulate and hustling home. And I mean, I don't know how many male listeners I have. All the sex isn't sexy. Trying for a baby literally takes the sexy out of sexy time. It becomes so robotic and almost like a chore. It got to a point where Andrew and I were like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it just wasn't fun. It wasn't fun anymore. It was a job, and we were putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, and then Andrew felt that pressure too, and it just like it's not a vibe. So now we're in late 2024, and we end up buying a house in New Brunswick. Screamy roomy. In October, with the plan to move officially over December 2024. So these big changes are happening, and I personally get to a point, and I think I alluded to this in the first episode too, like I definitely have anxiety. I'm medicated with sertraline. Sponsor me. I'm just kidding. But it all kind of came to a head, bubbled up, or whatever analogy you want to use, when we were about to move. So I went to, because now we're a year into trying, and I have friends around me that are struggling with fertility, and they end up getting a referral to the fertility clinic too, because I'm not super young. I'm 34 now. So like, is that a factor? Should Andrew and I be looking into further tests? We're at the year mark, so technically our GP at the time in Nova Scotia can make that referral. So I make an appointment with my GP, and not a great experience, because I'm going in, one, to ask for that fertility clinic referral, and two, to talk about my mental health at the time, where I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm feeling a little like I can't cope with the stressors that are happening. So I go in. She says that I need to do preliminary blood work first, and Andrew needs to submit a semen sample just for like baseline before she can even refer. So I'm like, ugh, whatever. Let's get that done and then send the referral off. But she didn't even like, and I was crying in the appointment. She didn't even care to get into details about my mental health situation, because the classic one topic per appointment. And as we were walking out the door, she was like, I hope you didn't feel rushed. And if you know me, I'm pretty blunt, straightforward. I turned around and I said, I did feel rushed. And I was crying. Like, why dismiss my concerns about not being able to cope with these big changes? I'm trying for a baby. I'm doing yoga. I'm doing acupuncture. I'm trying meditation, which, what the hell, I've never done before. So like, I'm trying to do all these things holistically and going to therapy. Now I think I need some pharmaceutical help, which is where I was hoping she would prescribe something that's safe to conceive and use while being pregnant and breastfeeding, blah, 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 which sertraline is. Consult your healthcare provider. But so we end up doing the preliminary blood work and the sample. She looks it over. Again, she's not the expert. She just like random timeline of, I just lost my train of thought because I have this baby stirring in my lap. But the blood work for fertility purposes, there's specific timelines in your cycle where they can measure certain hormones, and she just did it willy-nilly. She just did it willy-nilly. She didn't even like, I don't think she knew what to be looking for at the time or whatever. And then Andrew did his sample, and on paper has looked pretty good. The morphology, the motility, and the count looked pretty good. Again, not the expert, but she then sent off the referral. I had a follow-up appointment via the phone where she told me she sent the referral off, and she also kudos to her, apologized for rushing me and dismissing literally a patient crying in her office. So I just told her, I reiterated, I'm like, no, it's okay, but I'm not feeling okay. Again, normally I'm able to cope on a high frequency of stress, but when everything comes at me, and I'm very much an empath too. I know it's like such a, uh, guys, my brain's not working. It's such a catchword. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. But I feel everybody's emotions. And if a family member is stressed, or a friend or a colleague, I'm a fixer. I like to help, and I'll take that on. So anyways, I was feeling very overwhelmed before we moved, even though I knew we love our house. We're moving closer to family. I'm going to see my family much more too, rather than living in Halifax. Everything was going to be great. So we move in December. We got a referral. So we're moving to New Brunswick. We hear from the fertility clinic in Halifax after we move. So we do let me check my notes. So yeah, December 2024, we have our initial consult. So the way Atlantic Fertility works, in general, again, like everyone's experience is very different, but this is our experience with the fertility clinic. So there are a bunch of OBs and endocrinologists that work as a team. They also have a nursing team and a lab team and a pharmacy team. And basically, they just work collaboratively on your file. So even though you might have a doctor that does your initial consult or initial workup, doesn't mean they're going to be doing anything at all with you throughout your whole process. So for us, the doctor that did our consult and made her initial recommendations on what to do next, we never met her in person. We just, like, that's it. So the first conversation, she looked over the preliminary blood work and Andrew's sample, and she said, okay, this is what we can do next. So she wanted to do more blood work, which, if you're going to explore IUI or IVF, get ready to be poked by other people and by yourself, because there's a lot of needles and a lot of blood work. So she wanted to measure early on in the cycle. She wanted to measure your, I believe it's the FSH levels, estrogen and progesterone and LH, like a bunch of different blood works at different times of your cycle. And then she said, based on Andrew's results of his semen analysis, she wasn't concerned. They do offer, because again, they're non-for-profit, but it's fee for service. So you're paying for all these tests. There's more in-depth semen analysis. We didn't do that just yet. And not to point fingers at myself, but we honestly don't know what's happening. I'm hoping they're going to see something in my blood work and be like, oh, well, you just need more progesterone or something. And we do like a medicated cycle or something like that. But yeah, so we went over the supplements that I'm taking, blood work specific times. And then after blood work, I also needed to get an HSG test done, which is done at the IWK in New Brunswick, or the New Brunswick Clinic. I'm not really sure where you get that done. It might still be the IWK, but look it up. But basically, it's a dye test that you go in and they go transvaginally and inject dye through your uterus into your fallopian tubes, looking for any issues within the uterus or any blockages in your fallopian tubes. So those are the baseline tests, blood tests, and that test. That's first step to the next discussion on, okay, which route are we going to go? So, yeah, that's the game plan. For the HSG test, the IWK only does these tests on Fridays. So basically, cycle day 1, you need to call the IWK and say, hi, I'm cycle day 1, and I need an HSG test, once the referral had been sent from the fertility clinic. And you're not talking to anybody, you're leaving a voicemail, and they'll call you back to book in. The light just turned off. So, do we care? I can't get up because there's a baby. Anyways, let's continue. There should be enough light. Classic. So, you leave a voicemail and they call you back. The funny thing is, not the funny thing, again, IWK is in Halifax and I now live in New Brunswick. So it's going to be a last minute, oh, I got to drive to Halifax for this test on Friday. And it is difficult for someone traveling to do that. Also, their partner to join you. I 10 out of 10 would recommend you have a support person join you for this, because anything during this process is not only invasive but also invasive. Like it takes a toll on the old noggin for sure. So I end up, or it takes me like 3 different months to book this HSG, because again, there's so many people calling in and getting booked. It's luck of the draw depending on where your cycle is and if it lines up with the Friday. So it took me 3 times calling. So again, 3 more months of trying naturally. It's just a lot. It becomes a lot. So the HSG test, I drove over and spent a couple days there for work. Andrew didn't come with me because I thought I could do it alone. This whole hyper independence, Emily, does not exist anymore, because it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. And in hindsight, I would have loved my husband to have been there with me to hold my hand and or console me when I cried after. So this is my experience. It wasn't very great. I'm hoping other people have had better experiences. So you go in to like the x-ray area, and I'm all for students and learning in the medical field. I had a student radiographer and a resident OB. There was no staff around, which I would have loved to have staff nearby or whatever. So I go in, you're in a gown, and you get on this table. They explain what they're going to do. They use a speculum, like a pap test, or a tenaculum, which kind of clips open your cervix. So they used that, and they explain that the dye is going to feel like really, really bad period cramps. And your whole body's going to feel overwhelmed. You might even get sweaty, blah, blah, blah. Feels kind of like a contraction. So keep that in mind. Anyways, that passes. Like, that happens. It's about, can't remember how long they said it was going to hurt for, but I made it through that. What happened next? So as she was trying to remove the tenaculum, she clipped a piece of my cervix. So you are naturally going to bleed after this procedure. Not much. They give you a pad to wear and they tell you to monitor it. But she had to put pressure on my cervix for about 30 minutes. And it was so uncomfortable. And the poor students were trying to like distract me by complimenting my nails, which thanks. But yeah, it was brutal. And then when I got up, I felt very rushed when I was leaving. And the student, she had like must have had a class to go to or something. She was walking out with all of her files for the day because I was the last appointment. And she looks at me and she goes, "So you have a bit extra bleeding and you really need to monitor your pads. If you bleed through a pad within an hour, go to emerge." And I was like, "What? That's alarming. I have to drive home now." So anyways, I get dressed. They give me a couple extra pads and I start my drive home, and I cried all the way from IWK to Elmsdale, Nova Scotia. And I called Andrew and I was like, that was just so overwhelming. I wish you could have been there. And oh my God, I made him feel really bad, but that's neither here nor there. But I stopped every hour. I was worried. I didn't like, why would you say that and tell me that? Anyways, it's done. We end up getting the results in April. So actually, no, I skipped a step. We don't get the results until we have our next appointment, which I needed one more thing of blood work. And it was from cycle day 2 to 4. So very specific time. And I couldn't line up that time with either being home to get the blood work done or it being a weekend. And it was really frustrating because, again, it kept adding a month, another month. So This is how small this world is. And I told her I was going to give her a shout out because she is the reason why we have little Eloise, because she helped move the process forward. So I'm a sales rep and I'm sitting at the St. John Regional Hospital drinking a coffee at Second Cup. And I see an old friend, Hannah, at the hospital. I haven't seen her in over 15 years because I had moved away. And she comes and sits down with me, and I'm classic talking about private stuff. I haven't seen her in years. Anyways, I told her that I was struggling to get this specific timeline blood work done. And she goes, Emily, I'm a phlebotomist. I can just come to your house and do it. I cried. Oh my God, I cried. Anyways, so thankful. Hannah ended up coming to the house and we ended up getting the blood work done and submitting it. And our follow-up appointment was in April of 2025. And it was, I'm pretty sure, literally, yeah, I think we were on our way to vacation. We actually, we did the follow-up appointment in the airport. She reviewed HSG, everything looked good. Fine. My blood work, no issues. Andrew, no issues. So she said to us, you have technically, based on how long you've been trying, unexplained infertility. Now, is that easier to digest than an issue? I don't know. Is our unexplained infertility due to my stress levels? Am I creating the stress month to month, cycle to cycle? Again, I have no idea. Our next options, she says, you keep trying naturally. You could do IUI or you could do IVF. So we're sitting in the airport, we're digesting all this. I have a little cry naturally. And we say, you know what, we're going to message in the portal because they have this neat little portal. When we're ready to move forward, we don't know what we're going to do. We're probably going to try naturally until, like, this is April 2025, maybe try naturally until September. And then we'll make a decision. You have to budget for this stuff. This fucking stuff's expensive, guys. It's pricey. So, like, my heart goes out to anybody who struggles to have a baby, because all of the stuff that I had tried and these fertility treatments, oh my gosh, it's crazy. Which it's important to budget and plan for this. Don't stress yourself out financially as well. That's a big thing. Anyway, so we kind of leave it there and we go on our trip. I think it was Barbados. I can't remember. But while we were away, guess what happened? The premier, Susan Holt, shout out, announced the fertility grant. And New Brunswick residents, which we now are eligible to have their round of IUI and their round of IVF taken care of to maxed or capped amount or whatever, one per household. Game changer. So we discussed it at length. Again, I think we jumped right to IVF because, well, one, we'd have to keep traveling back and forth to Halifax. But I think if I had done IUI, I would still put the same amount of stress on myself every cycle, waiting. The 2-week wait, any way you look at it, is messed. It's so stressful. So I was like, okay, if I'm looking at it this way, the IVF cycle could potentially get covered to an extent. The meds were covered by my private health insurance, which Manulife, look into it. So why wouldn't we go through with IVF in the hopes that we're blessed to have a couple embryos and a couple shots at this? So yeah, we messaged the portal and said, we're interested in IVF. What are our next steps? We heard back pretty soon from the nursing staff that the doctor had decided to do the short protocol. I think I wrote it down. Oh yeah, short antagonist protocol for ovarian stimulation. Again, Google all this stuff, but what I want to do next, I'm going to pause and I'm going to look and see what the lighting looks like after that friggin' light just turned off. And then I'm going to give you timestamps of what this short antagonist protocol looked like. Again, since IVF, since having a baby, I've had a couple people reach out to me just curious about it. I think because IVF isn't talked about enough, we don't know. Like, we don't know what it consists of. We don't know the meds. We don't know the timelines, especially with New Brunswick residents having a bit of coverage. Travel to Halifax. If I can give you some guidance on what time I would like, what time I'd book off work or any of that, like, let's chat about it. That's the whole point of this podcast. But I'm gonna pause and see if I need to redo all of this. So yeah, and then I'll give you. So that was the lead up to the IVF decision, and now the IVF journey.